I would not put it past Sony to do a $650, $700 console for the Pro. I do not put it past them whatsoever.
Called it. How many of you are seeing the number 700 on your social media timelines? Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, this is due to a little reveal called the PlayStation 5 Pro, and it has got everyone online going absolutely crazy. Whether you're for this, against this, going PC route, the whole 9 yards, it doesn't matter. Social media is just going crazy right now. So we have a lot to discuss here. So we're going to go over a few things. First, we're going to go over the facts. What do we actually know about the PlayStation 5 Pro and what was presented and what actual information you need to know about? Then I want to get some opinions from my own co-workers here. Little Bobby and Lethal has always joined me today in these particular types of videos. And then we're going to go into some final discussion topics at the very end based on what we've been seeing online, what people have been saying, the whole 9 yards. So we've got some interesting takes to go over and some straight up just wrong information that we need to debunk. So let's get on and get started. So let's go over what we actually know from the presentation and what we saw from articles that were released right as this thing was announced. First off, the PlayStation 5 Pro is not the next generation of PlayStation consoles. It is simply a mid-generation upgrade, just like we saw with the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. The PlayStation 5 Pro, though, is going to run you $700 US, no disk drive, and no stand. The disk drive itself is an extra $80, and the stand is an extra $30. Basically, $800 after tax, maybe a little bit more, is going to include both the disc and the stand. We're assuming that they're going to have both of those options, or you'll still have to buy them separately regardless. During this presentation, they showed off three big features: bigger GPU, advanced ray tracing, and their upscaling. The bigger GPU is exactly what it sounds like. More GPU power, nothing more to go over there. The second point was advanced ray tracing. Advanced ray tracing that was most likely motivated by PlayStation when talking with partners like AMD. To our knowledge right now, based on some articles, this ray tracing is only being utilized in a PlayStation right now. It's not even on AMD GPUs. The final bit is going to be the upscaling, or as a lot of people are calling it, PSR. That is looking to be based off of SR3, which is an open source technology, but is customized in-house by Sony. So maybe they're able to throw a couple of extra things in there. In terms of the release date, this is going to be releasing on November 7th. Prices are a little bit differently depending on where you are globally, and there are noticeable differences between the performance on the normal PS5 and the PS5 Pro in terms of the quality that you see in the picture. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but if you're looking at pictures or anything like that on something like Twitter or other social media where the compression is absolutely terrible, that is not going to show you any big difference. Actually, try watching this on either a 4K screen or heck, even using YouTube's somewhat bad compression, 1440p 60, and you will notice right away some of the differences. Are they a huge difference? That's up for you to decide. But regardless, don't use pictures from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everything like that. You'll never be able to tell the difference. Doesn't matter. So with that being out of the way and all of the actual facts that we actually know, I want to get some raw, just straight opinions and reactions from this. Bobby and Lethal have always been here with me with Direct Gaming ever since we started the channel. And I want to know your guys' personal thoughts on this, because some people, including himself, Lethal will call himself a Sony pony. Bobby is definitely a more veteran gamer who has been around since the Dinosaur ages. But I want to know your personal thoughts and opinions on this thing. Lethal, why don't we start with you, Mr. Sony Pony?
Oh, sorry. I'm laughing because it was like I'm the Sony Pony and Bobby's he was playing games since the Dinosaur ages.
He's not wrong.
That was so funny. It was just so funny.
He's out of line, but he's right.
It's I get it. And Talon is right. I am the Sony show, and I hate to say that, and I hate to wear that on my chest, but you know what? I do wear it on my chest. You know, because I like PlayStation games. And I love PlayStation, and I will be honest in that my initial reaction, like most people, was going into this knowing that we were definitely going to get the PS5 Pro revealed, right? But it was definitely like everybody with the understanding that this is going to cost a good chunk of money. And so I even I knew it was going to be somewhere about maybe $600. But once you see that 700, there's no doubt, no denying that that's just that is a hefty price tag. And even as a Sony pony as I am, that hurts to see that, because I'm like, damn, that's a lot of money to fork out. And then obviously, right, you're forking out that money, but is it worth it? What are you getting with this package? And I'm sure we're gonna dive a little bit more into the specs of it, or from others' opinions on it and everything. I'm not the most technical savvy person here. I'm the least understanding of how to a deep knowledge of CPU, GPU, and stuff like that. Ask Bobby. I'm not the greatest with that stuff. But obviously, I see the marketing and I see the numbers, right? We see the percentages, the 40% or whatever buff in the GPU and whatnot. So I'm not an idiot. I get where this is going with. I get what this is aimed for, and this is obviously aiming to buff, certain things to make it obviously better than the base model. And for someone like me, as a Sony player that I am, it's enough to get me to invest into it. And obviously because I want to play my games, at the best way that I can play them, and that's what this is going to offer. And I think the best thing that I can say when I think about the PS5 Pro is that this is obviously a piece of tech that's not mandatory, right? It's completely optional. And I kind of feel like the way they even marketed it was that it was very much this isn't, like Talon said, this isn't the next leap of what the PlayStation is going to be. This isn't going to be the PS6, not the next big generational push here. But this is just that mid-cycle refresh for the people that want that extra power. And so I am one of those people that wants that extra power, but I can immediately say that this is definitely something that I could recommend to people. Hey, if you don't have the money to splurge on something like this, then in my opinion, right, it's just not worth getting. It's something that you can easily skip on. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can say with this is that so many people are giving these crazy takes and are bashing the crap out of it. But I think the most important thing is that as of right now, it's not like PlayStation is saying Last of Us 3 will only be on the PS5 Pro. Until that happens, you know what I mean? I think it's safe to say that they're very much marketing this as hey, this is not a mandatory thing. This is for the people that really want that extra power, right? This is for those enthusiasts, the hardcore fans like myself, who just want to pay just to have the extra, the whatever fidelity, the extra, hitting that 60, right, 4K, hitting those different things. So in my opinion, it's an interesting mid-cycle refresh. But it's enough, I guess, for me to want to jump in on it. And I just think all in all, it's going to be something that's really catered towards a certain crowd of PlayStation users. It's not going to be for all. I think that's my 2 cents for now.
All right, Bobby, what do you have to personally say on this thing?
I think Lethal put it really well. It's for the enthusiast. It is not for everybody. And I mean, Sony, I think, knows that. They know that, last time they put out a Pro, it was something like 12% of people picked it up. They're probably expecting the same amount this time, if they're being honest with themselves. And if that's the case, then they're putting it out hoping that 12% will either upgrade or invest new, especially with the idea that, it'll be the place to play GTA 6. They're probably counting on that as well. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be for everybody. It's just that simple. If you don't want it, don't buy it. It's, I have a very modest car because my car gets me where I need to go. And that's how people are going to be with their PlayStation 5. Just if it gets you where you need to go, then that's all you need. For someone like me and Lethal, we want, the really nice car. We want the Lamborghini to kind of roll around town with and have the best experience. And so we're going to be buying it from, at least from my understanding, me and Lethal both want this thing. It's because I like frames. I'm not so much as a Sony pony as I like to have high frame rates on everything I play, and seeing so much more stuff come out at 30 FPS just really gets me going. Okay, I'll buy a Pro if it means I can still, kick on a PlayStation and have a good experience in terms of frames at the end of the gen.
Okay, I mean, yeah, like I think both you guys have said, everyone has different opinions on it, and it's definitely built for a certain group of gamers. It's not made for everyone. When I initially saw this, I will say this though, right before I get into my own personal opinion, if Bobby remembers this, because we actually have it as a short on the channel from 4 months ago, I called $700 for this thing, and we've been getting comments now on that short in the recent comments just within the channel right now, and it's from that short going wow, you actually called it. So I had to pat myself on the back for that one. But initially when I saw this, I kind of smiled and laughed because I saw the $700. But what made me cry on the inside, which for those of you who don't know, I do live in Japan, so I have to go off the yen price. But regardless, we'll talk about all that stuff later. When I saw the actual technical stuff, because I actually like looking at technical differences within things. I love, just like Bobby, I prefer to have my higher frame rates. And one thing I loved from the presentation is that they actually said that 75%, give or take, of players prefer performance mode over quality mode. And I'm like, yes, people are finally learning about this stuff, which is great, because I'm tired of seeing the typical, oh, there's no difference between 30 and 60 FPS. And I sit there just rolling my eyes across my apartment back into my head whenever I hear that comments. So I'm glad that people are using performance mode, which is great. So it's, and you can tell a difference, like I stated in the beginning of this video, where if you actually watch it in, you know, just turn your, if you have a monitor that can do 1440p 60 or 4K 60 in terms of the YouTube compression, as bad as it can be, it is infinitely better than your Twitter compression or TikTok compression or anything like that. You are not going to notice that, especially if you're on your phone, where most phones can't even go above a certain frame rate, or you're stuck at 720p, because a lot of times when you're on YouTube videos or Twitter, they automatically put it out at 720. They are not putting it at 1080 even. They're not putting it at 1440p or even 4K. You're not able to see that half the time. So when we were live reacting to this, all three of us, and they showed the difference between PS5 performance mode and the PS5 Pro mode, where it was the Last of Us Part 2, I guess, showing just how good that game is, because they did do remaster it. As much crap as I give them for it, it does look amazing still. But you could tell the difference between those two modes, especially when you looked at the quality of the image and everything, since both are running at 60. When they showed the fidelity mode of PS5 to the PS5 Pro, oh, it was night and day. I could easily tell right away the difference between 60 FPS and 30 FPS. That is no question right there whatsoever, right? So I liked seeing all that tech stuff. And again, I know this is a mid-gen refresh. It's not going to be necessary. As much as I would love to be able to have those higher frames and everything, or that higher quality to frames, I should say, because it's not going to be going into like 120 or anything like that, because again, most people don't have the ability to actually see that on their TV, just because most TVs these days cannot hit 120 unless you go explicitly for that. It hurts that I won't be able to see that, but in reality, I have a PlayStation 5 already, and I've got a PC. If I want those high frame rates, I'm going to go for the PC. If I want to play on my couch or anything like that, I'm going to just play on my PS5. So again, best of both worlds. But I do think 700 is definitely pushing it a little bit, at least in this current economy. Again, we'll get into that discussion stuff later. But I will say the one thing I cannot fathom / they can't get away with is 30 bucks for a stand. Really? Like, come on. Just, God, just what is it is what it is. So those are my initial impressions. And then, of course, when I woke up this morning, we saw what social media was going with for, I'm sure it's still going crazy right now for like, what, 9, 10 plus hours at this point right now. And people are having some takes is all I'm going to say. So I want to get into our first question, because I've got 3 basic questions that I want to pose to you guys. And then obviously we can kind of bounce off that if there's side questions or anything like that. But the first big question that everyone's asking is, who is this for? And Lethal, you kind of answered this already, right? It is for the enthusiasts, the people who, no matter what, are going to buy their Sony stuff, right? A lot of people are comparing this to, the difference between the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 16 Pro, which is exactly what it is, essentially, because that was just literally announced less than 24 hours ago. And Sony is essentially becoming the Apple of the gaming landscape right now, because they believe that their brand can, on name alone, carry them, and there will be people to buy this. I think the thing that probably hits a little different, though, is the fact that when we saw something like the PS4 Pro at the time, that took the price of the PS4 at the time, and the PS4 dropped in price. Whereas this generation, the PS5 and even to an extent the S Series X and everything, those have gone up in price a little bit, especially depending on where you are. And now this Pro version has also gone up in price even more. So like we said, it's around $800 with the disc drive and the stand if you want those, which you have to keep in mind. If you have any physical copies of any games for the PS5 and you go for the Pro, you have to get that disc drive, which Bobby, I believe you said they are sold out on Amazon right now. So
they're sold out just about everywhere. Thank you, scalpers. I hate you people so much.
Yeah. So again, this is like 2020 all over again, where you couldn't find anything essentially. So so that's who this is made for, right? Love it or hate it, doesn't matter. People can complain online, but I do find it interesting. I want to get your guys' opinion on this. There are people online who are saying, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. No way. No one should be buying this or anything. And yet I know for a fact they will buy it. Whether it's because they're part of something like IGN or they buy everything, right? I know they have the funds to buy it and everything. I know they will buy it. And like you said, this will be sold out when it releases. Whether it is, it's going to be, obviously it's a combination of people actually legitimately buying it and scalpers, obviously. But this will sell out. So don't think it won't. Just scalpers in general are going to have this thing sold out. But there will be people who legitimately buy it. So you guys have any thoughts and opinions on the who is this for type of thing, or have we kind of hit that, all those talking points already?
You pretty much hit it for the most part. I was just gonna add on just the fact that I feel like if there's any fan base that's gonna buy the PS5 Pro or the Pro model, whatever the case may be, I feel like it would be the PlayStation ones. I feel like we talked about in the past before how PlayStation kind of dominates in that console market, and I kind of feel like PlayStation is just that group of people that would buy the Pro. If there's an audience to spend that type of money, it would be the PlayStation audience. So I'm not too surprised. Kind of the thing is people are no one's gonna buy this. I'm yeah, people are gonna buy this. You're crazy if you're crazy if you just don't think PlayStation fans are gonna buy this, because I feel again, back to my point, it's just it's just that one console, group of people that would do that. And the same thing with Nintendo fans, in my opinion. They're gonna buy the next Switch. When I bought the OLED, you didn't have to buy the OLED, but I bought it anyways. Some people bought a Switch Lite even though they had the base Switch. I think if there's two fans that would take the leap to buy these types of consoles or these extra iterations of that generation, I think PlayStation would be one to do it for sure. So I don't know, when people are there's nobody who's gonna buy that, I'm yeah, there's people who are gonna buy it. Don't think that there's no there's this weird middle ground of a hardcore casual, right? Maybe they're not the craziest to play every single first party game, but there I think is a fan base out there, at least within the PlayStation ecosystem, that's yo, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy the Portal, right? The Portal is not one to buy yet. It's selling crazy, I think, in different regions of the world. So my point is
out everywhere you look, essentially.
Yeah,
so
that's my point. Yeah, I think PlayStation is the fan base to spend money to get this. So when people are saying there's no one for this, I think there's somebody for it.
Well, the other thing is we know that at the beginning of the generation, Rockstar came out and said, we're excited to continue our journey with Sony for Rockstar Games, which means they likely worked out GTA 6 marketing before the generation even started. Yeah. If that's the case, and they start selling PS6 Pro bundles, or PS5 Pro bundles, excuse me, for GTA 6, that's game over. There's going to be so many people who will just buy it because of GTA 6.
They'll complain online, just it's online, it's social media, everyone does. But they will suck it up and they'll buy it because they want that one game. Mm-hmm. If it's the if it's the best place, what is it we always say on the channel? If it is the best place to play it, people will go there. That's just that's just how it goes essentially. So, and that can kind of tie into. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, just to add on to that point, don't think that's gonna be the only game you see them market with the PS5 Pro.
Oh no!
Don't be no. I'm just saying, 'cause I've seen people where's the games to showcase for it. I'm they may not have something now, but I guarantee you in future marketing, Death Stranding 2, you don't think Kojima's gonna want to show off the next game on PS5 Pro or something? You're gonna see other developers utilize marketing, and even PlayStation, right, working with them to market the next upcoming games. To be they're going to show this off on the PS5 Pro. You're going to see that type of style of marketing. So I know there's people who are there's no games for it. What's the point of blah, blah, blah. I'm oh, just wait. You're going to start seeing, all those types of stuff. So,
well, plus, and this was not the place to announce games. We knew that already. It was a technical presentation. That was it. But this can push us into our next topic, which is going to be, they can kind of combine here essentially, but is this worth the price? And this is where I've said this for many other things. We literally did a conversation, Bobby and I, on our live stream a couple days ago, which, by the way, join us for live streams every week. We do tons of discussions in gaming and everything, all this type of stuff. If you want to come talk about that, then you know where to find us on both YouTube and Twitch, links down below. But regardless, when it comes to being, is this worth the price? That is something only you as a consumer can ask yourself, right? The topic that Bobby and I were talking about earlier was all about shorter games for the quote unquote premium price of $60 to $70, right? Where both he and I were saying look, if the quality is there, and then I would pay, so for example, Astrobot that just came out. That game is probably only 18 hours if you try to, do a majority of the stuff in there. I'd still pay that premium price because it is that good of a game, right? Now, would I go and pay $70 for Gollum or King Kong from the the years before? No, absolutely not. So, but you as a consumer have to be able to do your own research. Don't even just listen to us, right? You need to go out there and look at multiple sources. You need to look at everything and really ask yourself, is it worth it to you? Do those higher frame rates or does that higher fidelity matter to you? And if it does, then you have to ask yourself, is that thing going to be worth the price? If it's not worth it to you, then don't buy it. It's That's simple, essentially, right? But Sony and, you know, all these companies every single year, they do their research and everything. And as it's not, I wouldn't say it's obviously not 100%. I mean, Concord is what I'm going to say there. I know, Bobby, that hurt you a little bit right there. But, you know, they, to some extent, do this research. And, you know, especially if the PS4 Pro sold X amount or X percent of the total PlayStation 4s, then we're going to see you. I would not be surprised if we see, again, a 12% total amount of PlayStation 5 Pro sold out of the entire PlayStation 5, right? So it's just, you have to ask yourself and really start to do your own research and not just simply look at comments on social media. That is the worst thing to do when it comes to researching this stuff and seeing if this is worth it for you. Would you guys agree with that?
I mean, yeah, it's you know, value, like, is something worth it is always subjective.
Because one of the things we have been seeing online quite a bit, and Bobby, I'm going to let you go off on this. Take a look at this picture up on screen right now, folks. A lot of people are saying, just buy a PC. And so what our own local gamer Dinosaur here decided to do was do a quick PC picker build based on the parts of what the PlayStation 5 costs, at least to the best of our abilities. Some parts you can't get down, like, for example, the 12 gigabytes of RAM. We basically went 16 because RAM is reasonably still priced these days. But in terms of like the particular CPU, the motherboard, the new Wi-Fi 7 chip that they do have in the PS5 Pro compared to the non-Wi-Fi 7 that they have in the normal PS5, and all that stuff. He put this up right here, and it looks to be costing over $1,000. And I'll let Bobby get into this a little bit, but anytime I'm seeing these comments about just build a PC, again, you have to ask yourself, is that worth it to you? Because it can be for a lot of people. I myself have both consoles and PC, but anyone kidding themselves that you can build a much better PC than that current price of that PlayStation 5 Pro in today's market? Yeah, that's not happening. I'm sorry, it's not. Unless you are able to find like the used market and you know every little thing about it and you can confirm every single part that you buy is not in some way, torn down or anything, or it was used for scalping or anything like that, like, you're not going to find that same price for a much better PC. You can find a PC for under that cost easily, but trying to hit those same parts and everything, that's where it gets a little trickier. So Bobby, I'm gonna let you talk about this.
Yeah, with the part list that I put together, I went off of the specs that I could find for the PlayStation 5, because we know some of the things are staying the same. The processor, what I could find, the closest representation is a Ryzen 7 3700X, which I used to have one of those. That was a really good processor, and when I heard that was going to be in the PS5 back in the day, I was like, oh, that's pretty solid. That's a good choice. Obviously you need a cooler for a thing, so I went with the cheap Thermalright. I actually use that very cooler in my PC. That is a very solid cooler, and that is a hell of a price for a cooler. So if you are ever actually building a PC, look into Thermalright, because their coolers are exceptional and they are very cheap. Yeah,
it's a great price to performance comparison for that particular line of coolers, is what I would say.
With the motherboard, we don't have anything that's going to match the PlayStation motherboard and what it has on it exactly. But we went with something that was, relevant. With the 3700X, it's a couple years old, the motherboard. They kind of do sell them still. They don't sell the 570, which is what I have, and I would have used a 570 if they sold it still. I use that for my 5900X that I have, but they don't have that for these anymore. So to try and keep the price down a little bit, I went with the B550. Then we got 16 gigs of RAM. The PS5 does have 16 gigs of RAM. I wanted to correct you on that, Talon. And I believe it's about that speed. I believe it's about a 3200.
But it's not. It's not a full 16. It's technically 12 after the whole play. And the X does this as well, where it's like 4 gigabytes of that is for all of the system, operating system stuff.
No. You're talking about the split RAM. The X does that. That's part of what makes developing for Xbox challenging, is because they split their RAM, which is what PlayStation did in the PS3, which is what caused it to be such a hassle to develop for.
Okay, got it. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, so no, you're right on that. And they do that with the Series S too, with its 10 gigs of RAM, which is why that is such a hassle. And then, you know, we had to go for a 2 terabyte drive, and the cheapest one we could find that gets even close being a PCIe 4 was the Western Digital Black 770, the SN770, which is not as fast as a PlayStation drive. So you're going to get lowered performance there a little bit. The new PlayStation 5 Pro graphics card is reported to be the equivalent of a Radeon RX 770 XT, which is a very good card. But that's $400 by itself. So, you know, you start seeing that and you go, okay, like 700 doesn't sound so bad when one part costs, you know, that much. Then we put a power supply in. I put a modest power supply. Normally I would go personally with my builds higher just because I want to make sure I have headroom for other stuff that I plug in, like USB devices and all that. We added a case because you need a case. I got one as cheap as I could that would fit everything comfortably, which would leave airflow, because, you know, you kind of have to work your own airflow in a PC. Then if we want to take this off, we could, but we had to add $50 for a Wi-Fi 7 Wi-Fi adapter because the motherboard only has Wi-Fi 6 and PS5 Pro will have Wi-Fi 7, which is an upgrade, which means you can download faster over the Wi-Fi. So if you want to keep it on par with that. And then, you know, for a PC, an expense that a lot of people don't think of is case fans. Now, normally I would add 5 case fans to a case. To be frugal here, I went with 3. So that's a $60 addition. Things I did not include are the optical drive, like a Blu-ray drive, a UHD 4K Blu-ray drive. We didn't add a mouse and keyboard, which in my opinion, if you want a good gaming mouse and keyboard, it's going to cost you about $50 each for one that's decent. It's not really just bad. You could use like a regular mouse and keyboard, like the Logitech wireless one, like combo that you get at Best Buy for $20, but it's not going to be great for gaming. It just doesn't feel good to game on it because, you know, they're not built as ergonomically. They don't have, they don't respond the same. We also didn't. Oh no, I think that was it. I think that was it.
One thing I just realized you did not add in here because it's not actual part of the PC or anything like that. But in order to actually take advantage of, and this is true just if you buy a PlayStation 5 Pro, by the way, in order to take advantage of that Wi-Fi 7, you need a router that can actually do that.
Yeah, and but I mean, that at that point, you know, you also have to go, well, like we'd have to add that on a PlayStation too, right?
Right.
Most people
And that's why I said you also need this if you buy the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Oh, and the one thing that I did not add is Windows, which you absolutely need to install on your computer. And if you don't go on one of those sites where you can get basically what amounts to a stolen key for $20, which I'm not going to say you shouldn't do that. Like if that's how you can afford Windows, do that. But if you buy it, let's say through Amazon, it's going to cost you $100 for Windows.
Yep.
Right. So like we already see with the stuff that I left off, we're getting over $1,100.
Right.
Then adding the stuff that I left off, if you go for like a $50 mouse and keyboard, that's $100. If you go to
you're basically
cheapest
hitting,
Windows
you're
possible,
gonna hit $1,500 essentially. Let's round up, add some taxes in there.
Let's be real. Okay, yeah, I guess we're adding taxes. You're probably gonna hit 14. Yeah,
that's still pretty conservative in my view.
Yeah, that's if you're trying to match a PS5 Pro. And look, like I'm not saying anyone needs a PS5 Pro. You do not. That's been a thing that we've said. Like even Lethal and I, who are like, we're gonna buy it, but we understand why you don't want to and why you think it's a ridiculous price.
Right.
Like,
We said at the beginning, you know, you can get a PC for much cheaper. You obviously can.
Yes.
If you wanted to and you know how to work the market and everything, you could get a 1080 60 FPS PC for, you know, $400 or so. Like you could do it. You can do it. But you got to know how to do all that stuff. And the average consumer, I would say, does not know how to do that. Heck, I barely know how to work the used market and everything. Granted, it's definitely different here in Japan compared to the States and everything. But regardless, like you've got to know how to do that stuff in order to take advantage of that. Plus, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to take the risk, especially with something like a GPU and everything like that? We all know how expensive GPUs are, especially these days. We don't know. You never know in the used market unless you actually find somebody who's willing to tell you the truth, which a good chunk of time they're not going to. Was this card used for scalping back in the days? Was it used for the cryptocurrency stuff back in, 2020, 2021 and all that stuff? And if it was, that put a lot of strain on your graphics card already, and you might be in trouble down the line, at least. Not in the moment, but down the line, you could be in trouble with that stuff just because all of a sudden your parts are starting to die or overheat or anything like that. So, and then you also have to come into the realization when it comes to PC building, and I have to worry about this every single time I build a new PC, is your parts just randomly dying on you sometimes, right? Like everything could be perfect. Something happens, some electrical surge goes through, or just bad luck of the draw. Next thing you know, your RAM's not working anymore. Your RAM slot is not working on your motherboard or anything like that. So, you've always got to worry about that.
I think that's the thing that people kind of miss, is that like the whole PC maintenance scene, like that's not for most people.
It is not.
Like most people,
and that's the reason why people go with consoles. That's why they go with them.
Right, exactly. Like that's the whole point of consoles and why they're so important, is that it takes away all of that, and all I have to do is hit the PlayStation button and my PlayStation turns on and I play my games. I think people forget that convenience factor of what console brings and why that's so important and why we kind of need that, because most people don't want to go through the whole setup of a PC. So I think people just gotta keep that in mind too. So people are gonna think about that too. People are also willing to spend that extra money for the strongest version of this console, but because it's in a console form factor, it's not a PC, right?
Yeah,
like you're gonna get that extra power that you might actually want, that maybe is in a PC or whatever, sure, but because it's in the ease of convenience of being packaged together in this console, like in this PlayStation 5 Pro, I'm just gonna spend the money and do that. Like that. I think people kind of don't think that that's like the reality for most people, because a lot of us online or whatever are like, we're more the
minority,
hardcore fans. Like
we are the
people
minority.
kind of forget that, and so like most people, they see that, they're like, oh, this is stronger, this is gonna make my gameplay look better, or it's gonna run smoother. Oh, I'll pay the extra $200. Like like that. People forget that, and I'm like, that's a real thing, guys. That's a real thing. I promise.
Yeah. I will say, if you get the chance to, I do highly recommend trying to eventually get into the PC realm, because there is something about building your own PC and being able to play games on it. It is something special, I will say. So maybe not now.
If you're inclined, absolutely. Some people just, it's like Lethal said, though, they just don't want to be asked.
Right. And I completely understand that. Yeah, and I completely understand that. Some people prefer, just again, like your brother Chin said, right? He wants to sit on the couch, play the games. That's all you want, and that's what a lot of people want, and that is 100% okay. That's what people prefer.
What's so funny about that too is Chin has built more complex PCs than I have. He's done like the whole custom loop water cooling, where he has to like heat the pipes and shape them the way he wants them and all that. Yeah. Like he's done all that, and I'm like, I've used an AIO, and now I just was like, I'm just gonna go with a fan because I'm lazy.
Oh, I go with the close. Yeah, I just go with an AIO every single time. I'm not even gonna bother with
like the Peerless Assassin that I put in this list. It's what I use, and it keeps it cooler than my AIO did, which is nuts. So like the air fans are super easy, and they're super good. It used to be AIO is the only way to keep it cool enough, but like these designs on these air fans are crazy nowadays.
They're doing really good, those designs now.
But that being said, like when I have to build a computer, I'm like, okay, I know it's going to take me like several hours today, versus when I get the PS5 Pro, I'm going to open the box, take it out, and then plug it in, and I'm done. And then, it's going to be like, oh, link your PlayStation account. Okay. And then boom, all my stuff's there. That it's that easy. And for a lot of people, Chin, at the end of the day, there's days when he gets home from work, goes to the gym, then comes home, and he's like, oh, I'll play some games. I don't want to have to sit at my desk. I've been sitting at a desk all day. I want to lay on my bed or sit on the couch and just veg and just play a game with my thumbsticks.
But I will say though, and this is more, and because we're near the end of this recording and everything, so I can kind of go off on this tangent a little bit. Non-US citizens, in terms of people buying this thing across in different countries and everything, I do feel your pain. Because normally, like back in the old days, essentially, right? The conversion when it came to like the US dollar to whatever your local currency was and everything like that definitely did not look like this right here with the PlayStation 5 Pro. It did not look like this back in the day, right? Especially like as someone who lives in Japan, like I said before, with the yen, what this feels like right here feels like paying over $1,200 for the console. And that's because back in the day where the yen to the dollar was basically $1 US to 100 yen. So just take whatever US price you have, throw a couple zeros onto it, and that's what the yen used to be. But with how a combination of how weak the yen is, how global economics is right now, with price gouging from companies and everything like that, and now the short, I think I've even seen shortages of silicon and other chips and everything like that. That's a thing coming back now when we thought we were out of that. All of that combined now makes this thing feel like I would be paying almost $1,300. In fact, probably close to $1,400 with the disk drive and everything included, almost $1,400 for a PS5 Pro, which is why I have to stay away from it, because I'm like, I cannot justify that, because in yen, we haven't seen a huge increase in, salaries for the average person. That's almost half my paycheck right there to buy a PS5 Pro, just putting it out there. So people in other countries, I feel you, 100% feel you. Unfortunately, I think the US gets the benefit of that right there. So,
and for people in other countries, I want to say, we live in America, and that's where Sony is based now. Yeah. So Sony's
been doing this for quite some time. Sony has clearly been focusing on the Western market because Nintendo has their grip here in Japan, and So, but I will say this, and I'm going to predict this right now. September 11th Japan time. I'm going to call right now that the Switch Pro, whatever the next Switch console is, I think in US price, I think it's going to be $400 to $450. And then whatever the yen or other currencies are, will convert that way. I'm calling right now $400 for
I feel like we'd be getting off easy for 400 if we're being honest. That's me.
Oh, well, okay. Well, hey, throw your predictions right now. What do you guys think? What do you think the next Switch is going to be?
Probably 500.
You think it'd be 500? Lethal, what do you think it's going to be?
Damn, you got all right, man. I'll go in the middle. I'll go 450. It's not possible. 449. 449.
He's doing the prices right.
The prices right. There we go.
Let's get 3 different prices. Let's see who's closest.
Yeah.
And
so
if it's 600, if it's 600, man, oh my god.
I'm gonna go 401.
Oh my goodness.
Semester talent.
It's crazy to think that like when Switch does get announced, it's just gonna be like everybody's gonna see the price of like if it is like 400, 500, just be like, oh my god, amazing. Like after this, it's like, man, you could put any price as long as it's lower than what this came out to be, and it's like
no, because you're gonna see the because here's the thing. Lethal self-described Sony pony, but he is not like toxic Sony pony like you see on Twitter.
Oh no!
Because
I'm not like PlayStation is the only right. It's like the supremacy or whatever. Like I play Xbox games, I play Nintendo games.
Yeah,
I just like PlayStation is my preferred platform. That's all.
Yeah,
but it is funny.
But like those people.
Oh yeah, we've seen those.
Like they're charging $400 for that. Are you kidding? Look what the Pro's gonna do. It's like, come on, like the Pro doesn't have Mario. I don't give a fuck. Like doesn't have. They have Astro, which is very good.
They have Astro now, man.
They don't have Zelda.
It's not yet. Not yet.
You know what you can do for those people is just throw up that list, Bobby, that you found of, funny enough, 69 different games for the Switch and how they've all sold over 1 million copies.
Oh my god!
So just throw that
brother. America.
Yep.
It's Mario Kart.
But now we want to ask you guys, what are your personal thoughts when it comes to the PlayStation 5 Pro? Have a level discussion. I know it's hard sometimes, but have a level-headed discussion in the comments. We will try to reply to as many as we possibly can. Like we said here already, Bobby and Lethal, they're going to buy it because they want that extra performance. Me, myself, it'd be cool to have, but I don't need it. I've got a PC if I want to be able to get those, that 1440, 120 FPS, all that kind of stuff. That's just me personally.
But Talon, what if it's a day one exclusive?
Well then,
what about Final Fantasy?
I'm gonna have to be the poor gamer and just play on my 60 FPS.
He has to play in 30. No, I'm just kidding.
No, God, no. I would never play fidelity mode. Get that 30 FPS garbage out of here.
You don't have a choice.
Talon's smart.
You might not have a choice in 3 years. You don't know.
Hit that performance.
Oh no, I will take that performance mode any day of the week. And sometimes those performance modes, in terms of the quality, they can look like garbage on a 4K TV. I will simply move over to my smaller PC screen and I'll play it there and be perfectly happy. That is what I will do. So, but anyway, let us know your thoughts down below, guys. Do you think the PS5 Pro is actually going to sell? If you had to take a percent in terms of the total PS5 sales, because they are online right now or on track, I should say, to actually stay level with the PS4. Where do you think the PS5 Pro is going to be? Analysts are saying 12%. Do you think it'll be lower, higher? Let us know all your thoughts down below in the comments. But once again, I do want to thank Little Bobby and Lethal for joining me here in this discussion. Make sure you join us live sometimes. Bobby and I try to live stream once a week, or catch us in our videos and our discussions. Let us know down below in the comments on whatever topic we're talking about or anything like that. With that being said, though, I'm Talon with Direct Gaming. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you all in the next one. Johnny.